Have you ever felt that you are not living your own life? Like an actor in a play whose script you hate? Are you tired of the dull dissatisfaction that has become the background? Of complaints that change nothing? Of the feeling that you have betrayed someone most important? And that someone is you? This feeling is not a sign of your weakness, and it is not laziness. It is a symptom, an alarm signal that your soul is desperately trying to send you. Carl Jung, the great cartographer of the human soul, left us a key to deciphering this signal. He showed that behind every complaint about the world lies the unheard voice of ourself, and today we will use his map. Over the next hour, we will not just talk about this problem, we will take a journey to its source. First, you will understand why betraying yourself became a survival strategy for you. Second, you will learn what specific task your soul is setting for you through this pain. And third, most importantly, you will see the only way to stop complaining about the world and finally start building your life in alliance with yourself. If you are ready to hear what your soul has been silent about for so long, our immersion begins right now. Let's talk about this feeling, about this heaviness. It is like an invisible garment you have been wearing for so long that you have stopped noticing its weight, but not its cold. It is a constant, dull pressure on your shoulders that has become part of your posture. It is an inner chill that does not go away even on the warmest day. It is the background you have grown used to, but which slowly drains all the colors from life, leaving only gray, muted tones. It is a life lived through murky glass. You see the world, but you do not participate in it. You see the joy of others, their successes, their confidence. And you feel like a spectator at someone else's celebration. You see their laughter, but you hear it as if from a distance, through cotton wool. You see their warmth, but you cannot touch it. The world is happening somewhere over there, behind an invisible barrier, and you are standing on this side in your quiet, cold loneliness. And complaining about the world is your only way to scream through this glass. It is a desperate attempt to break it. Unfair. Why them and not me? If only. These phrases have become your prayer, addressed to a deaf sky. You repeat them in the hope that one day you will be heard, that someone or something from the outside will come and save you from this glass prison. But here's the cruel truth that is so hard to accept. Every such prayer is not a step toward freedom. It is another layer of dust on the glass, making the world even dimmer. It is another lock on the door of your own soul, the click of which you hear in complete silence when you are alone with yourself. And before we go any further, I want you to hear one important thing. This is not your fault. I will repeat it again so that it sounds louder than your inner critic. Your state is not a sign of your corruption or weakness. It is not a defect of your personality that needs to be fixed or hidden. It is the tragedy of strength channeled in the wrong direction. It is a cry of life energy locked in a cage of circumstances, others' expectations, and your own deeply rooted fears. The very energy that was given to you for creation, for love, for flight, finding no outlet, turns into a quiet poison of discontent that poisons you from within. You feel not the absence of strength, but its agonizing, suffocating presence in a confined space. And you are not alone. Believe me, you are not alone in this. Millions of souls right now are wandering the same twilight corridors, feeling the same dull despair, asking the sky the same questions. This is not your personal flaw. It is a universal human drama, playing out in countless hearts that have forgotten the way home, to themselves. And now, let me offer you a paradoxical, almost heretical thought. What if this constant dissatisfaction, this habit of complaining about the world, is not your enemy? What if it is not a disease to be cured, but a symptom of recovery that you have misunderstood? What if it is the most faithful and devoted guard at the threshold of your soul? A guard who is not trying to torture you, but is desperately trying to get your attention, to draw attention to what you have left behind, to that part of yourself that you betrayed long ago, making a deal with security and approval. This guard sees that you are on the wrong path and raises the alarm in the only way available to him, through your suffering. This guard does not speak the language of words. He speaks the language of pain. And what if your pain is not a curse, but a compass? A compass whose needle is spinning wildly, not because it is broken, but because you are standing right on top of your destination. You are standing at the most important crossroads of your life, and your soul is using the only means available to it to tell you, look, stop. The real path begins here. This guard speaks the language of symptoms, the language of complaints and disappointments. And to understand his message, we must first learn to distinguish the symptom from the disease. For too long, we have tried to treat the fever while ignoring the infection. For too long, we have tried to silence the alarm without noticing the fire. To do this, we must destroy the popular myths about laziness, bad luck, and weakness that, like a thick fog, hide the true landscape of our soul from us. These myths are not just misconceptions, they are convenient excuses that only lead us further from the truth, forcing us to fight with shadows. Therefore, our first step is deconstruction. We must show intellectual courage. We must take apart the old, dilapidated map drawn by our fears and others' expectations to finally see the territory anew. We must dissect the lie to get to the truth. Let's look at the labels that the modern world loves to attach to this condition. You have probably tried them on yourself. Procrastination, imposter syndrome, low self-esteem, lack of motivation, toxic thinking. We hear them everywhere. From coaches, from self-help books, from our own inner critic who gladly latches onto any ready-made explanation. And we begin to believe that if we just start acting, believe in ourselves, think positively, or work through our beliefs, everything will change. We make plans, stick affirmations on the mirror, force ourselves to go to the gym, meditate, keep a gratitude journal. We declare war on our laziness, our fear, our negativity. But a day, a week, a month passes, and the heaviness does not go away. It may retreat for a while, lie low, but then it returns with renewed force, and added to it is a sense of guilt for having failed again. Why? Because all this time we have been making the same fundamental mistake. It's like trying to cure a deep internal infection by just bringing down the fever. You take a fever reducer, positive thinking, and for a while you feel better. The temperature drops, but the microbe, the true cause of the illness, has not gone anywhere. It continues its destructive work in silence. You fight the fever, but the microbe continues to destroy you from within. These labels are not just incorrect, they are dangerous oversimplifications. They make you fight windmills, wasting precious energy on battling symptoms, while the real dragon, your inner conflict, your deep self-betrayal, sits calmly in the cave of your unconscious, gaining strength. Imagine your psyche as a complex, self-regulating ecosystem. It has its own laws, its own balance, its own striving for wholeness and health. When something foreign and hostile invades this system, for example, rejecting your true nature for the approval of others, living according to false values, betraying your deep talents, the system gets sick. And the complaints, dissatisfaction, apathy, cynicism, this is not the disease itself. It is a fever of the soul. Let's remember for a second what a fever is in the medical sense. It is not a defect of the body. On the contrary, it is a sign of its strength. It is a wise, healthy, protective reaction of the immune system to an invasion. The body deliberately raises the temperature to create unbearable conditions for a virus or bacteria, to mobilize all its resources for the fight. A doctor who only sees the temperature and tries to bring it down at any cost, ignoring the infection, is a bad doctor. He is not fighting the disease, but the body's attempt to heal itself. In the same way, your habit of complaining is not your problem. It is a desperate attempt by your psyche to burn away the lie you are living in. Your soul deliberately raises the temperature of your dissatisfaction to make your current situation, the job you hate, the relationship in which you are suffocating, the life devoid of meaning, unbearable. This heat is meant to destroy the virus of inauthenticity. This lie, this infection, is a deep inner split. A split between who you have become to survive in society and who you were born to be. Between your social mask, your persona, and your true center, your essence. And as long as you try to treat complaints with positive thinking or willpower, you are essentially trying to bring down the temperature while ignoring the disease itself. You are working against yourself, suppressing the healing reaction of your soul. And the disease is the betrayal of the self. And now I will ask you to do something important. Not just listen, but truly participate in this journey. This is the moment when theory must touch your life. Otherwise, it will remain just a beautiful idea. Pause this video for a minute. Seriously, do it. Close your eyes if it's more comfortable for you, and recall the last situation when you complained about the world, about people, about circumstances. You don't need to look for something global. Remember a recent vivid moment. Maybe it was a conversation with your boss, a fight with a loved one, or just a quiet evening when you looked out the window and felt a dull disappointment with your life. Remember this feeling in detail. Remember the words you said, out loud or to yourself. Now, holding this situation in focus, ask yourself one question, but ask it with utmost honesty. What truth about myself, about my true desires, or about my fear was I trying to ignore in that moment? And right after it, a second, even deeper one. What responsibility of my own was I running from by shifting it onto the external world? Do not rush to answer. Sit with this question in silence. The answer may frighten you. It may cause resistance, anger, a desire to turn off this video and forget about it. This is a good sign. It means you have touched something real. Because a complaint is always a projection. It is a way to take your inner problem, your fear, your indecision, your unmet need, and hang it, like a picture, on the wall of the external world to look at it from a safe distance. But it is in this painful sting of recognition, in this honest answer to yourself, that the key is hidden. A complaint is just a loud noise you were making so as not to hear the quiet whisper of truth from the depths of your soul. If you were honest with yourself, you probably felt a pang of recognition, perhaps even a pang of shame. That's normal. You have just touched upon one of the most fundamental mechanisms of the human psyche. This mechanism, transferring an internal drama onto an external screen, is universal. We are all, to one degree or another, masters of this unconscious theater, where we assign the roles of our inner demons and angels to the people and circumstances around us. And no one understood this theater more deeply than Carl Gustav Jung. He was not just a psychologist. He was a cartographer of the soul who descended into the darkest and most forgotten dungeons of the human unconscious and returned with a map. He saw that at the center of every person's psyche is something he called the self, das Selbst. This is not our ego, not our social mask, not the personality we show to the world. The self is our inner God, the totality of our personality, our true center. It is the complete image of who we can and should become. To make this clearer, Jung would use a metaphor. Imagine that the self is a wise and eternal king, living in the very heart of your inner kingdom, and your ego is the active and ambitious general. In a healthy kingdom, the general serves the king. He carries out his will, implements his strategy in the world. But the whole drama of self-betrayal, this whole fever of the soul, begins the moment the general, intoxicated by praise and his tactical victories, forgets about the king. He decides that he knows best. He begins to wage his own petty and meaningless war for status, money, or approval, ignoring the strategic design of the king. To heal, we must restore this sacred connection. We must teach our general to come and bow to his king again. We must understand the language in which the self speaks to us. And this language is not the language of logic. It is the language of symbols, dreams, intuition, and our most agonizing symptoms. Imagine your psyche as a kingdom. At its very heart, in a quiet and sacred throne room, sits the king. This is your self. He does not interfere in daily affairs. He does not give orders about collecting taxes or repairing roads. His task is deeper and more important. The king holds the development plan for the entire kingdom, its unique destiny, its purpose. He is the living embodiment of the soul of this place, its DNA. He contains the knowledge of what forests should grow in this kingdom, what rivers should flow through it, what cities should be built for it to become itself in its full, shining glory. The king has a faithful and indispensable general. This is your ego. The ego is the acting force, the hands and feet of the kingdom. Its task is to manage the army, conduct daily affairs, interact with other kingdoms, with society, with other people. The general lives in a world of forms, facts, and strategies. He is incredibly important. Without him, the king's will would have remained an unmanifested dream in the throne room. In a healthy kingdom, there is an unbreakable bond between them, a sacred axis. The general, no matter how busy he is with his campaigns and negotiations, regularly comes to the throne room. He leaves his noisy, bustling world, his sword, and his maps outside the door. In silence, he stands before the king and listens. He listens not with his ears, but with his heart. He absorbs the king's vision, his design, and returning to the world, he acts. His actions are filled with a higher meaning because behind every tactical victory stands the great strategy of the king, and the kingdom flourishes. But the problem, the tragedy of almost every one of us, begins the moment the general, intoxicated by his tactical victories, praise from other kingdoms, the glitter of conquered trophies, the feeling of his own power, decides that he is the ruler. He begins to think that the map is more important than the territory, and he himself is more important than the king. Visits to the throne room seem like a waste of time to him. What can that old man know about the real world, he thinks. He stops going there. The door to the throne room becomes covered in cobwebs, and the kingdom begins to decline. On the outside, everything may look wonderful. The treasury is full, the army is strong. But inside, decay begins. The roads become overgrown with the weeds of doubt. The people grumble from a hunger for meaning. The general rushes about, trying to fix the situation. He builds new walls, starts new pointless wars, issues ever stricter decrees. But the grumbling does not stop. And this grumbling, this dull dissatisfaction, this inexplicable longing, these are your complaints. It is the voice of the kingdom that feels it is being ruled by a usurper. It is the cry of your people, your forgotten talents, your betrayed values, your unrealized dreams, who know that the general is leading them astray. Let me tell you the story of Sarah. In her inner kingdom, the king was a great artist. From early childhood, when her fingers first touched charcoal, she knew it. For her, the world consisted not of facts, but of light and shadow, not of words, but of lines and color patches. The smell of turpentine was incense to her, and the scratch of a pencil on paper was sacred music. When she drew, time disappeared. The noisy world beyond the canvas simply ceased to exist. This was her throne room, the place of her true power and absolute authenticity. Her king was alive, and the whole kingdom sang. But her general, her active, practical ego, was frightened. He heard voices from other, more powerful kingdoms. The voices of her parents, ambassadors of practicality and security, said, "You can't make a living as an artist. It's not serious. You need a stable, respected profession." The voices of her teachers, emissaries of social success, echoed them. "You have brilliant analytical skills. Don't bury them in the ground for some hobby." Her general listened to these voices, and fear settled in his heart. He looked at the fragile, beautiful world of his king and at the mighty, pragmatic armies of neighboring kingdoms. And he made a decision. He decided that security was more important than the king's will. One fateful day, he went to the door of the throne room, where the king was creating his worlds, and with a heavy heart, he turned the key in the lock. Click. And then, silence. He locked the throne room and sent Sarah to study law, and his strategy worked brilliantly. Sarah became a successful corporate lawyer. Her general got everything he dreamed of: praise from the firm's partners, impressive fees, status, respect. He built a magnificent, impregnable fortress of achievements, not noticing that inside this fortress, the king himself was slowly starving to death. The kingdom was dying. Sarah became irritable, sarcastic, cynical. She complained about stupid clients, about the unfair system, about meaningless paperwork. But every complaint was just an echo of the king's desperate knocking on the locked door of the throne room. Her complaint about stupid clients was the king's cry for a world devoid of beauty and nuance. Her cynicism about the system was the king's anger at a life built on logic without a soul. He did not die, he was just imprisoned. And his colossal creative energy, finding no outlet in creation, turned into poison. The poison of discontent, which slowly but surely poisoned her entire kingdom from within. Sarah's story is not just a story, it is a mirror. In each of us lives our own inner artist, our scientist, our traveler, or our healer. In each of us, there is an imprisoned king. For some, it is a scientist who craves not data, but an understanding of the cosmos, but instead compiles quarterly reports. For some, it is a traveler for whom the world map is a list of promises, but who has not left his city for years. For some, it is a healer whose hands know the language of compassion, which the mind has long forgotten, but who works in a field where cynicism reigns. And in each of us, there is a frightened general ego, who long ago made the decision to lock this king in the throne room. He did not do it out of malice, he did it out of love as he understood it, for the sake of security, which turned out to be a gilded cage, for the sake of stability, which became a stagnant swamp, for the sake of the approval of others, which had to be bought at the price of his own soul. Now look at your life. Your job, which brings no joy but pays the bills, is a locked throne room. Your general is proud of these golden handcuffs, but the king inside is suffocating. Your relationships, in which you play the role of a convenient partner, an understanding friend, or a responsible child, but cannot show your true vulnerable self, are a locked throne room. Your general receives approval, but your king languishes in loneliness. Your unrealized talents, which you call just a hobby, are not pastimes. They are royal regalia gathering dust in a locked chest. The guitar standing in the corner, the notebooks filled with poems that no one has seen, the idea for a project that you have carried within you for years, but are afraid to even voice. All of these are locked throne rooms, and your complaints about your boss, your partner, your fatigue, the injustice of the world, are nothing more than the cries of your king coming from behind the locked door. Your irritation is his anger. Your apathy is his despair. Your longing is his longing for himself. And hear me correctly, he is not asking you to drop everything and leave. He is not demanding an immediate revolution from you. He knows the general is afraid, and he has compassion for him. He asks for little. He asks you to just approach the door, put your ear to it, acknowledge that someone is behind it to start a dialogue. And so we stand at the threshold. We have gone through theory, through someone else's story, and now this road has led us directly to you. The previous step, when you looked into your own complaint, required honesty. The next step requires even more courage. It is the courage not just to admit the problem, but to name your hope. And here is my second question for you. It is perhaps the most important one you will hear today. It requires not intellect, but the courage of the heart. What is the name of your imprisoned king? Who is he or she? The artist whose brushes have dried up and whose canvases are covered in dust? The musician whose melody sounds only in his head but never breaks from the strings? The teacher who longs to share wisdom but is forced to sell numbers? The entrepreneur who sees systems and opportunities where others see chaos but is afraid to take the first step? Perhaps it is the explorer, locked within the four walls of an office? The healer, whose hands know the language of compassion but work with soulless mechanisms? The mother or father who wants to raise children not by society's book, but by the wisdom of their own heart, but fears judgment? The traveler, whose spirit languishes in the routine of the same homework home route? Or maybe your king does not bear a grand title. Maybe it is just a person who wants to live a quiet and simple life in harmony with nature, a person who wants to plant a garden, read books, look at the stars, a desire so deep and pure and so often condemned in our world of hyperachievement that you have hidden it in the most distant dungeon. Do not answer right away. Do not look for the answer in your head, in logic, in the list of your diplomas. Your general ego does not know the answer to this question. He is afraid of it. Take a breath and feel the answer. Which of these names, which of these images makes something inside you stir? Which one resonates with a quiet but clear yes? And if you find the courage, I invite you to share this name or a symbol that represents it in the comments below. And let me be perfectly clear, this is not for me. This is not for the YouTube algorithms. This is for you. By writing it, you will take the first, most important step. You will perform a ritual act of recognition. You will bring your king out of the dungeon of the unconscious into the light of the screen. You will give him a name, and what has a name gains existence. You will create a community of those who also heard the knock on the door. By reading the comments of others, you will experience an incredible feeling, a feeling of recognition. You will see that you are not alone in your longing. Let's turn this space under the video not into a field for arguments, but into a gallery of our forgotten kings, into a sacred place where everyone can bring the portrait of their true self into the light, and where others will say in response, I see you, and it is beautiful. So we have established that your complaints are the cry of your inner king. We have given him a name. We have acknowledged his existence. This was a colossal step. But now let's take the next, even more important one. Let's understand that these complaints are not just a cry, they are also a map. The most accurate and detailed map you have ever had. A map leading directly to the throne room. The principle of reading it is paradoxically simple. Each of your complaints is a precise, almost navigational arrow pointing to the area of life where your general ego has usurped power and where your immediate, conscious presence is required. Do you complain about the meaninglessness and routine of your work? Congratulations. You have just found a point on the map. It is here, in this very job and not in some mythical dream job, that your task of returning meaning lies. It is here that you need to bring the light of your consciousness and ask, what part of myself am I betraying here? What creative energy am I suppressing? Do you complain about a relationship where you are not valued or understood? Excellent. Here is another mark. It means it is here that you must stop being a convenient reflection for another and learn the painful but liberating art of authenticity. The ancient alchemists, who were the first depth psychologists, knew this secret. They had a principle that sounded like this. In stercor invenitur, in filth the treasure is found. They believed that gold, the philosopher's stone, should be sought not in pure and noble metals, but in prima materia, in the primary matter, in the chaotic, despised, rejected mass. Your complaints, your dissatisfaction, your envy, your cynicism, this is your prima materia. This is the very filth in which the gold of your transformation is hidden. All your life you have tried to get rid of this filth, to cleanse yourself of it, to hide it from others and from yourself. But it is in it that all the energy is contained. Your envy of someone else's freedom is the gold of your own striving for it. Your anger at injustice is the gold of your suppressed power. Your longing is the gold of your longing for yourself. Stop cursing it. Stop running from it. Start exploring it. Ask your pain the question, what treasure are you holding for me? And it is here at this stage that the biggest and most seductive trap awaits our general ego. Having heard the king's cry, having realized the scale of the betrayal, his first seemingly noble impulse is an immediate external revolution. I will quit this hateful job tomorrow. I will end this suffocating relationship today. I will drop everything and leave. This impulse seems like an act of strength, a reclaiming of control. But in 9 cases out of 10, it is just a more sophisticated form of escape. Sometimes external changes are indeed necessary, but premature external changes, made before deep internal work, are just the general fleeing from one battlefield to another. You can change the scenery, but you take the director with you. The very inner pattern that led you to this situation in the first place. You will quit one meaningless job and a year later find yourself, to your surprise, in another exactly the same. You will end one relationship and enter a new one, which in time will become a mirror image of the old one. Because the problem was not in the job or the partner, the problem was in the part of you that agreed to this deal. The real work happens inside. It begins not with a letter of resignation, but with a quiet, courageous question to yourself. What part of me agreed to this deal? What fear of mine made me betray the king and go into the service of others' expectations. Jung would call this part your shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is simply everything we do not want to acknowledge in ourselves. Our fear, our greed, our need for approval, our laziness, our cowardice. You must meet this part of yourself. Cowardly, conformist, craving approval, not to execute it, but to listen to its story. To understand what pain it was trying to protect you from when it made this treacherous contract. You must look it in the eyes and say, yes, this is also me. I was afraid of loneliness. I was afraid of poverty. I was afraid of judgment. Only after this inner reconciliation, after this integration of the shadow, does your general cease to be a slave to his fear. He becomes a free and wise commander. And then his decision, to quit or to stay, to leave or to change the relationship, will not be a panicked escape, but a conscious, strategic move, made in glory of his true king. I understand that all of this may sound grand and a little intimidating. To meet the shadow, to restore the connection with the self, these are great tasks. But a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And I want to give you one practical, grounded tool so you can take that first step this very evening. Jung called this technique active imagination. I will call it more simply and concretely, counsel with the king. Here is how it works. Set aside 15 minutes a day when no one will disturb you. This is not time for efficiency. This is your sacred time. Take a journal or a simple notebook and a pen. It's important to write by hand, not type. On the first page, let your general ego write. Give him complete freedom. Let him complain, fear, doubt, list all the buts and ifs. I can't quit because of the mortgage. What will people think of me? I don't have any talent. I'm too tired. Do not hold him back. Do not edit him. Pour all this noise, all this anxiety, all this pragmatic, frightened voice that rules your life onto the paper. This is a very important step, to let him speak and be heard. And then, turn the page. Take a deep breath. And imagine that you are entering that quiet throne room in the center of your kingdom. You can imagine it however you like, as an ancient temple, a clearing in a forest, a library full of wise books. And you see your inner king or queen. You simply stand before him, and you ask one simple question. For example, what do I need to know today? Or what is my next right step? And after that, listen. Do not expect loud answers or detailed instructions. The answer may come as a sudden image that flashes before your inner eye, as a quiet feeling in your body, an expansion in your chest, or, conversely, a contraction, or as a single quiet phrase that sounds in your head. Patience, create, speak the truth, rest. Write down everything that comes, even if it seems like nonsense or irrelevant. This practice is not magic, it is work. It is the restoration of that very sacred connection, the ego-self axis. It is training for your general to learn again to hear the voice of his ruler amidst the deafening noise of the external world. At first, this voice will be barely audible, like a whisper. But the more often you come to the throne room, the louder and clearer it will sound. Let me tell you something that perhaps no one has ever told you. What you are experiencing is not a personality breakdown. It is not a sign that you are broken or going downhill. These are its birth pangs. Your old personality based on serving fear and others' opinions, the general personality who forgot his king. This construct is no longer viable. The armor you have built for years to survive, to protect yourself, to be accepted, has become too tight for your growing soul. It does not protect, it suffocates. And your soul, in its infinite striving for wholeness, has begun the process of destroying it from within. And the pain you feel is not the agony of death. It is the pain of the birth of a new, more whole, more authentic version of yourself. It is the pain of muscles that are stretching for the first time in a long time. It is the pain of eyes that were accustomed to the semi-darkness of a cave and are now seeing the light of the sun for the first time. But this birth will not happen on its own. It requires your conscious participation. It requires immense courage. The courage to stop looking for culprits outside, in the government, in the economy, in your parents, in your partner. The courage to stop waiting for a savior who will come and fix everything. The courage to take full, 100% responsibility for your inner kingdom. For too long, you have looked at your life from the position of a victim of circumstances, a pawn in someone else's game. But today, that story ends. Because the truth is, you were never a victim. You are not a victim. You are a ruler returning from exile. And your way home, your way to the throne, does not begin with a loud revolution in the external world, not with burning bridges or declaring war. It begins with a quiet daily dialogue in the depths of your own heart. It begins with the decision to listen to your king, and this decision changes absolutely everything. We have come a long way in this hour. From the sharp pain of betrayal at the very beginning, through the cold hall of deconstruction where we destroyed old myths, to the throne room of our soul where we met the imprisoned king, we have looked our shadow in the face and received a practical key to begin an inner dialogue. And if there is one single truth, one pearl of wisdom that I want you to take away from this deep immersion, it is this. Your complaints about the world are your soul's longing for itself. Read that again. Feel the weight of these words. It is not a weakness to be eradicated. It is not toxic thinking to be corrected. It is a compass to be trusted. It is a sacred signpost that yourself is desperately trying to show you. It is not noise to be silenced, but music to be listened to, even if its melody at first seems sad and dissonant. And therefore, the only way to stop betraying yourself is to make a Copernican revolution in your inner world. To stop considering your ego the center of the universe and your suffering as enemies. And to start treating your darkest, most negative feelings not as enemies, but as faithful messengers from your true self. Your apathy is a messenger that says you are spending energy on the wrong thing. Your anger is a messenger that points to a violated boundary. Your envy is a messenger that whispers about your own unrealized potential. Stop fighting with yourself. Start listening. What will change when you begin this dialogue? Do not expect life to instantly become easy and cloudless. No, the path to oneself is not a pleasure walk, but a serious expedition that requires courage. Old habits will cling to you. Fears will whisper doubts to you, and the world will continue to test your strength. But it will become yours. Instead of the dull noise of discontent, there will be silence inside, in which you can, perhaps for the first time in your life, clearly hear your own voice. Instead of desperate complaints thrown into the void, there will be conscious decisions made in alliance with your inner center. The energy that used to go into maintaining an internal war and fighting windmills will be freed up for creation. You will stop being a splinter in the ocean of circumstances, tossed from side to side by the waves of others' opinions and random events. You will become the captain of your ship. Yes, there will be storms. There will be fogs of doubt and reefs of old habits. But for the first time in your life, you will be at the helm. You will have a map in your hand and a destination in your heart, and you will know where you are sailing. And that knowledge changes everything. And in conclusion, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for making it all the way to the end of this journey. In a world of endless information flow, where everything is fighting for your attention, you have given a whole hour of your time not to entertainment, but to deep inner work. Please recognize the value of this. It takes courage to look into those corners of the soul from which we have so long and stubbornly turned away. It takes courage to listen to the pain, not to numb it. You did not just watch a video. You performed an act of courage, an act of inner sovereignty, and now you know that you are not alone. The feeling that you are the only one who feels wrong is one of the heaviest illusions that our frightened general ego creates. But today that illusion is shattered. Everyone who left a comment under this video, naming their king, everyone who listened to this point, feeling these words resonate in their heart, is your fellow traveler. We may be separated by thousands of miles, live in different cultures, and speak different languages, but we are united by one thing, a common intention. We are a community of those who heard the knock on the door. We are a community of those who decided to stop being a victim and reclaim their kingdom. Welcome home. If this journey into yourself resonated with your soul, if you felt that the language of your heart is spoken here, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. But let's be honest, this is not just a button. See it as your personal declaration of intent, a quiet oath to yourself to continue this path, not to turn away from difficult questions, to come to your inner throne room again and again. It is your way of telling your general ego, from this day on, we will listen. Every like on this video is more than just a number for the algorithm. It is a beacon. It is a signal you send to other seekers, wandering in the same fog you once were in. It is a silent message that says, you are not alone. What you are feeling is real, and there is a way. This channel is our common base for this expedition. Each new video is a new map for exploring our inner world, a new tool for dialogue with our soul. We will talk about the shadow, about archetypes, about dreams, about the great process of individuation, about everything that helps us become who we were born to be. Join our expedition, become a fellow traveler on the most important journey a person can ever undertake, the journey to oneself. And remember, when you stop complaining about the world, your soul finally gets the chance to speak. Let it.